One of the places that the church was too silent was the abuse of the J6 defendants and the things that have happened to them over the last 4 years. Our guest joining us now, Sarah Maccabee. Her husband has been in prison for 3.5 years now, just had his 31st birthday. I'm going to share in a few minutes what he had to say on his birthday. But Sarah, Executive Director of Stand in the Gap, already working and helping other families that have been subjected to this political persecution that's happening. Sarah, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me on and giving us a platform to tell our story.
Well, your story is infuriating, to be honest, and most people have no idea how bad our justice system has become. And your husband, a law enforcement officer, has spent 3.5 years in prison now for political persecution. He did nothing wrong on January 6th, actually tried to help another police officer. And so the abuse of how this was done and the manipulation of the courtrooms and the judges and everything else has been disgusting to me as someone that loves the Constitution and loves justice. Would you share a little bit of what happened to Colton that day and what you've been doing for the last 3.5 years to help other defendants?
Absolutely. My husband, Ronald Colton Maccabee, was a law enforcement officer of 7 years on January 6th, and he did just what he was trained to do as that law enforcement officer, and that was to run when chaos was breaking out around him, to run into action. And so he did that. There was an officer that was down in distress, Metropolitan Police Officer Andrew Waite, who he was helping up off the ground as he was being assaulted by other Metropolitan Police officers, and he's communicating with them, saying that he's one of them, that he's trying to give help. He knows how to give help. And as he's trying to help this officer that's in distress, off to his left, Roseanne Boylan is being viciously beaten by Metropolitan Police Officer Lila Morris, and he's trying to save her life. Unfortunately, protesters pulled Andrew Waite down the stairs. Thus, Colton went down with him. And as he's over top of him, protecting him, as the crowd is calling Colton a traitor, and he's yelling, "No, stop, quit," the officer acknowledges that he's helping and says, "Help me up." And Colton does, and then he goes to get Roseanne Boylan and starts to give her chest compressions. This entire encounter happens in 7 minutes, from the time he steps foot into the mouth of the tunnel to the time that an officer thanks him for his help and he walks away, was 7 minutes. And the FBI came and raided our home August 17th of 2021, and he has been incarcerated ever since. He was held 26 months prior to trial without bond. They said he was a danger to the community. And, you know, when you're in Washington, D.C., you're not allowed to talk about the accolades. He had won awards for helping other people, for saving other inmates' lives. And that didn't seem to matter, that the 27 years of his life, he was an upstanding citizen, a good officer, and none of that seemed to matter in front of a jury of nobody's peers. And the prosecution and the judge, they operate with impunity. So it just doesn't seem to matter. But what has been exposed through this process, I believe these individuals were chosen for such a time as this. I really do, because they have exposed such corruption.
That's
from
right.
The time that these individuals are indicted on a grand jury all the way through the conviction process, and now him being in the BOP. And so there's a lot of work that needs to be done in this corrupt justice system.
You know, Sarah, we're going to, I think, 576 days from now, celebrate the 250th birthday of the Declaration of Independence. And a lot of people say lives, fortune, sacred honor when they talk about the Declaration, but they've never had to sacrifice any of those three. Your family obviously has had to give so much of all three of those. With your permission, I'm going to read Colton's letter from just a couple of days ago on his 31st birthday that he put out, because I think people need to know what's been sacrificed for our freedom by these J6 defendants, because it's important for everyone to let President Trump know you want these J6 defendants to be pardoned. Here's what Colton said on his birthday. "Today I turned 31, a number that feels both like a milestone and a marker of time served. I find myself not in the embrace of freedom, but within the confines of this cell. Arrested at the age of 27, the years have stretched into what feels like lifetimes. Each day etched with the trials of my convictions, the weight of my beliefs, and the hope of redemption. This birthday, I hold on to faith that it will be my last spent as a political prisoner. Over these 3.5 years, my life has been a pilgrimage through darkness to find light. I've forged bonds with fellow believers and patriots, creating bonds with family and new friends where there was once solitude. Finding strength in our shared resolve, I've pushed my limits, gaining physical strength, and have shed the weight of despair, focusing instead on self-improvement and the nurturing of my faith. In this time, I've turned to my family, to mentors, to books, to Scripture, to learning new trades, not just to pass the time, but to prepare for a life beyond these bars. Each lesson learned, each page turned, has been a step toward reclaiming my narrative, my identity, my future. As I reflect on this journey, my heart aches for the freedom I've yet to regain, but it also swells with anticipation. I envision the rest of my 31st year under the open sky, in a world where justice is restored, under the leadership that champions the values for which I stood. My goal is to become more than I've ever been, to be the uncommon among the common, a testament to perseverance, a voice that echoes in the silence of oppression. This birthday, I celebrate not just my existence, but my journey, a journey of heartache, growth, and an unyielding spirit. I commit to never stop, to never surrender, to be the best version of myself for God's glory, those around me, and for the nation I love. So here's to my 31st birthday, a day that marks not just another year, but a year closer to freedom, to purpose, to living out the purpose that led me here. Happy birthday to me, a moment of reflection, of hope, of an unwavering promise to rise from these ashes stronger and wiser than ever before. Colton Maccabee, the sheriff of J6. Sarah, Colton's not just an American, he's the best of us. He represents what being a great American is all about, and yet he spent the last 3.5 years in the D.C. gulag, in prison, for simply standing up for his country and trying to help a fellow police officer. What are your hopes for a pardon? How does it actually work from here? And what are you hearing about the Trump administration's plans to pardon the J6 defendants?
You know, we need pardons across the board. It's no longer violent versus nonviolent. Every January 6th defendant, almost 1,600 of them, have had their constitutional rights dissolved right in front of them. And if we are a nation on founding principles, and that means regardless if they were involved with Antifa, Black Lives Matter, or they did nefarious things that day, nothing constitutes the deplorable conditions that they've lived in and how they have been treated by this justice system. Not only do we need pardons, we need full investigations into January 6th because it was a coup in our nation and it was used against American citizens. Truly, the police officers waged war on American citizens that day because they were given orders from up above. 4 individuals lost their lives on January 6th, and those families will never be made whole again. But what can happen is we can get justice for them. We can get justice for the 1,500 American citizens, and we can ensure that this never happens again, because this is a stain on Americans' history.
Brad, you mentioned it earlier. You've got to have justice, and the only way to get justice is going to be these investigations. It's going to be actually going after the people that made the decisions to do things like this, and it's going to obviously be pardoning these J6 defendants. What do you think? Do you think that these pardons will happen, and how do you think the American people will respond?
You know what? It is such crazy town. Now they're talking about Biden. There's considering pardoning Fauci and pardoning, all these other potential people who would be the ones that need to be indicted for what they have done. And the January 6th people certainly are those who have faced injustice clearly and through a calculated effort to create this illusion, this mirage, so they could indeed keep Trump out of office again. And it didn't work. So, you know what? I hate to be a pessimist, even though it's funnier to be a pessimist, more jokes. But my hope is, my belief is that if Americans decide to hold our people accountable, I don't think that Trump is going to for a second not want to pardon these guys. I don't know how it works. I don't know how easy it is. I don't know if there is Congress you have to go through. I don't know if there's certain procedures that you have, or apparently you just decide, I think you're better now. And
no,
and you can even choose the length of time that you are pardoned from.
Yeah, so, it's entirely up to him. I mean, this is one of those things that a president absolutely has the ability to do. In fact, here's what Donald Trump said. He said, does the pardon given by Joe to Hunter include the J6 hostages who have now been in prison for years? Such an abuse and miscarriage of justice. So the fact that he tweeted that out, I think, is a very good sign. Watch this quick clip from Joy Reid. I mean, talk about hypocrisy over the pardon issue.
The presidential pardon was originally meant to grant the president the power to temper justice with mercy. It was not enshrined in our Constitution so that a dishonorable man could reward his criminal allies, friends, and family for their corrupt practices. I don't have a problem with Biden pardoning his son. He should have pardoned him. The crazies are coming, right? But to me, it's like, pardon more.
So obviously two different songs, depending on where they are, no doubt about it. Sarah, now, pardons or not, there's a lot of help that needs to be given to these J6 defendants when they get out. Stand in the Gap is already preparing for that. How can people help you at Stand in the Gap?
Absolutely. You can go to our website. My website is sarahmaccabee.us. On there, it talks about not only Colton's story in more detail, but how you can help not only him, but January 6 defendants on this long journey home. Because for 3.5 years, they've been at the hands of the federal government. They've lost their homes. Some of them have lost their family, their cars, their careers. And so it's not just about when they walk out of those prison walls. And my hope is that they walk out January 20th or January 21st. It is now assisting them on this road home. And we have a road home project where we are going to help them on this journey to be whole, contributing citizens again. Because my hope is for them is that their sacrifices do not go in vain, that they are able to use this as a launching pad to ensure that even people that we disagree with, to make sure that the government cannot do this to them anymore.
You've testified in Congress. You've spoken all over the nation on this. How do people respond when you tell them the story and how egregious Colton's case is? Do people change their opinion because they've had such a one-sided narrative from the media for so long? When they find out just how bad this has been, are you seeing a change in attitudes?
Absolutely. I hear all the time about they didn't know that there were 1,500 American citizens wrapped up in it. They didn't know that still to this day, the FBI is doing pre-dawn raids on individuals' houses for misdemeanors. They don't know that there's 239 individuals sitting in federal prison. And, you know, just the other day, somebody said, I just really didn't realize how normal Colton was until I read your story. And Colton's story is not unique according with the 1,500 January 6 defendants. These are Americans that need us now more than ever.
The website again for Stand in the Gap?
You can go to sarahmaccabee.us and there's a link on there.
sarahmaccabee.us. You know, family is what matters. I think it would be appropriate right here. We've got a small clip from John's new album, Revolution, and a song that I think fits perfectly for the Maccabee family.
When you're at war, these three things I die for. My faith, my family, my freedom. That's what's backing me. Gives me a reason for living. I gotta fight for what I believe in. Love, loyalty, I place fidelity. In this land of liberty is everything. My faith, my family, my freedom's all that matters to me.
All right, John, I'll admit it. It's the #1 song on my Spotify playlist right now. So fantastic job, man, on the new album. Everybody has kind of a catalytic moment that gets them really involved. I mean, obviously, J6 for a lot of people. For you, it was in your hometown. Can you take us back to 4 years ago and how all the craziness of 2020 really made you, I mean, you always had bold music, but it got you out there with your voice in a way that could have had you completely canceled, and you could have lost your whole musical career, and you were willing to put all that on the line.
Well, thanks, Rick. It's good to be back. Yeah, I think a couple of things happened in 2020. It was a 1-2 punch. The COVID stuff really threw me because I saw what it was doing to people. I had 2 teenagers at the time, and I saw what it was doing to them and their friends. And I was watching a lot of it, and I was reading a lot, and I was like, they're lying to us. I can tell that they're lying to us. And we've been warned in the Bible a lot about this. We've been warned about beasts. We've been warned around a tyranny and these leaders that rise up that try to enslave everybody with their power. So that was happening. And then the second thing that happened was we had George Floyd. And a few months later, people remember there was a man named Jacob Blake who was killed by the police up in Wisconsin, Kenosha, Wisconsin. Well, that's where I live. And we had BLM, marches and turned into riots, and our city burned down. That was 3 blocks from my house. Kyle Rittenhouse shot people. That was, I mean, I can see it from where I live. And it was all of that together that I just thought we have to speak out or we're going to lose our country. And that's what rock and roll is about. Rock and roll is about standing up and singing something that you're passionate about, that you believe in, because as we know, music is powerful. It's the power of music and the power of praise, as a lot of us already know. And so I just thought I have to use this platform for that. And so we decided to start doing that and never looked back.
You know, if Lance Wallnau was on tonight, he'd talk about the fact that we need to be taking back every mountain: music, entertainment, journalism, all of those different areas. So it's kind of cool to have all of you on as guests because you're in each of these different areas of the culture. And I think we are beginning to see a big turn. Brad, coming up in 2025, we're going to be hitting the road doing some Comedy and Constitution events. And I think people are going to be hungry for your message of how we win the culture war and why it is important to push back on cultural Marxism. What are you most optimistic about going into this new Trump presidency in 2025?
I think the whole idea that the people feel like they were heard, they were listened to, that we had had enough, that they felt empowered again. That I think was the greatest frustration, as I said earlier, was we felt like we knew that everything had gone sideways and nobody knew what to do. We felt powerless. And I feel like something happened, and it is God's grace. Rick, you know, you and I have been doing this a long time, and we've been in the best and the worst of times. And something happened with that election, with that everything going red, and even states that were, you know, usually obviously lean blue were even going red. Even I think it was Washington State in total was red. It actually, you know, was more red. So clearly there was a breakthrough that Americans finally decided who are we? What are we going to fight for? Is there something about this nation worth dying for? It's not hyperbole. It's not words and lip service anymore. You have to go beyond being a citizen, which is a beautiful and amazing thing, and you have to decide, I'm an American again. I care about my borders. I care about my language. I care about my traditions. I care about our foundations. I care about the original intent of the Constitution. I care about all Americans, even the ones that disagree with me, but nobody is above the law. Everybody should be given free speech, and nobody gets canceled. Nobody's allowed to do that. And I don't know, maybe the funnest thing is if Donald Trump decides to pardon himself.
Well, I mean, look, you know, we said everybody has a, you know, catalytic moment that really gets them engaged. Donald Trump has had 4 years of catalytic moments to make sure that he is going to be a different kind of president this time around. In fact, here's what Glenn Beck had to say about it.
I've met with presidents before. I met with Ronald Reagan. I met with George H.W. Bush. I met with George W. Bush. And I met with Donald Trump. I have more confidence in Donald Trump now than any other president I've met with. The guy is super informed. It is a blessing, honestly. It is a miracle that he lost in 2020. We would not have had this president, the man he is today, if it wasn't for his loss in 2020. He had 4 years to go, okay, what did I do wrong? How did they get me? How did they thwart me? How do I stop it? And how do I reverse this machine while dismantling this machine? He is laser focused on that. And if he said it once to me, he said it 1,000 times. Glenn, it's going to be breathtaking. It's coming. Change is coming, and it is coming fast. They are not going to know how to deal with it.
Sarah, I got to tell you that not just his tweet about the J6 defendants, but those comments from Glenn and what we've seen in the resolve of President Trump is what gives me the most hope that Colton will be freed on January 20th or January 21st. Do you see it the same way? Do you think this is a different Donald Trump?
I absolutely agree. I think that what Glenn Beck said is absolutely true. It's a new man, and I believe that the Lord has absolutely chosen Donald Trump to lead this nation. You know, we don't need to reinvent the wheel. We just need to go back to our founding principles, what America was founded on. And I will tell you, on November 6th, there seemed to be this new hope, this new faith in America, that the Lord had said, you are never too far gone, and that we can restore justice, not only justice, but we can be the world superpower again. We can make America great again.
Yeah, it's truth, justice, and the American way back. And a lot of people think Superman started that. It was Jefferson in the Declaration. That's where that really comes from. Not exactly in those words, but pretty close. All right, let's see from Speaker Johnson. It looks like the same amount of resolve potentially from the House of Representatives.
Remember, the Supreme Court overturned the Chevron doctrine, right? That's a game-changing kind of situation. Not in my lifetime, but we had the opportunity to go in and really take back control from the administrative state. For a long time, they've been acting as judge, jury, and executioner on the rules that they make on industries and small business owners and the rest. So we have the ingredients, we have the conditions right now to actually be able to make really dramatic change. And we're going to go through and have those discussions, those brainstorms to see. But you're going to have willing partners in the House and Senate among the Republican
You're also going to
conferences.
have so many people who are pushing back.
Oh, of course.
My donors, my, the lobbyists that I promised things to, they're not going to go for that, and I won't get reelected if I let you cross that off on our list. So what are you going to do about that?
Well, you're going to have a president that's bold enough to do it. We have our own version of the Argentinian leader, right, with Donald Trump. And I've used the blowtorch analogy rather than a chainsaw, but it's all the same. We do have to scale back the size and scope of government. It serves the people. It unleashes the free market again. Our policy changes will be a part of that, but I think that if we can make some dramatic changes in downsizing the scale and scope of these things, will go a long way. And
so two specific examples, Planned Parenthood and PBS, are in congressional control. Are you planning to axe both of those?
I would like to, that's for sure.
I love hearing that. Now, listen, I'm glad he mentioned Argentina. Part of the reason that our FlashPoint commentator, Mark Meckler, was not with us this week is he's over there with Milei in Argentina at a conference, and we're learning how to do what they've done over there right here in America. So it's very encouraging. John, listen, this is revolution time, no doubt about it. I don't know if you knew somehow that it was going to go this well when you named the album this go around, but tell folks where they can get the book, Wimpy, Weak, and Woke, because we're going to have to come out of that in the church to make this last. In other words, one election's not going to do it. We've got to get the church engaged again. And you wrote Wimpy, Weak, and Woke a year ago. In fact, by the way, did I tell you that's how I found my church? My pastor put your book up on the screen the first time I visited the church. I'm like, if he's quoting John Cooper, this is going to be home. Anyway, how can they get the book so they can get prepared for 2025?
Oh, that's really funny. Yeah, go to Amazon. It's the easiest place. John L. Cooper, Wimpy, Weak, and Woke. That's the best place to do it. And I think that a lot of people, didn't know how close we are to really losing Western civilization.
Yeah.
And I think you just nailed it. I think we have a reprieve. I think we got a little time here. But if the church doesn't wake up and begin to instill Christian values into young people again and remind them what freedom is, and the fact that the freedom we have in America really is based on Christian freedom. It's not licentiousness. It's not license just to go do any crazy thing you want to do. We have the freedom to pursue virtue, the freedom to worship our God. If we don't do that, we're still going to be in a world of hurt. It's just going to get pushed down the road. And so I write a lot about that in the book. I sing about that on the new record. Please, everybody, go check out The Revolution. The Revolution was never, this album was never about a political revolution. It was about a spiritual revolution to tell our young people that they matter. They are not a mistake of Darwin's evolution. There is truth. There is absolute truth. And one of the things I feel passionate about are these young people, man. We have the highest rates of suicide in American history. Depression is through the roof. We've got to do something about it. And I hope that this record can encourage people in their faith and tell them that they matter because they are created for a purpose. They are created in the image of God. And that's where joy is found, in a relationship with Jesus Christ.
Amen. Well, and that, John, I mean, you're speaking to the rot in the culture that doesn't go away with an election. That's got to be healed. It's going to take time. It's going to take exactly what you're saying. It's going to take the church literally making disciples. It's going to take us truly being salt and light. Brad, for that to happen, the church has to find its courage. We're seeing more and more pastors speak up. You got about 30 seconds here to help us close, but what do you want to say to the churches out there about getting engaged in 2025?
Well, this is the thing that we have neglected to realize for so long. I don't know why, but it's so obvious. We were never called to be Christians, Rick. We were called to be disciples. If you want to bring me into your church, hey, I'll do comedy, but I am here to encourage your churchgoers to become disciples, to get all in. This is the only way this is going to work. It is time for you to quit posing, become a true believer, be willing to die for this. It's not hyperbole. It's actually what was expected. And to say, this is all I am asked of God is saying to us. Get all in, speak what you say, live it, be unapologetic, be courageous, because in the end, God wins.
Amen.
Every time.
Sarah, 30 seconds. Could you just tell us how we can pray for you and Colton and your family in these hopefully final few weeks of his incarceration?
Absolutely. Just pray for the journey ahead for all of these individuals, for what they've had to endure, and for the road ahead, because like I said, this is far from over. We have a system that we have to beat and restore in America, but just to pray for their safety, as many of them are sitting in prison and they will be away from their families again this holiday season, and some of them have young children. But ultimately, we need to pray that America takes action, because in the Bible it says faith without works is dead. And just because we won the election on November 6th in the wee hours of the morning doesn't mean that we can sit back for the next 4 years. We have to undo everything that has been done. And it's not just about the last 4 years or the next 4 years. It's about the next 250 years in America.
Yeah, amen. Absolutely right. Sarah Maccabee, Brad Stein, John Cooper, thank you all for joining me tonight. FlashPoint Army, now is the time to get ready for a big 2025. I mentioned earlier that, Gene Bailey had been the one to see a lot of this. He was kind of a Paul Revere, warning us of what was coming. Well, now it's time for us to get in the fight. You need to go to biblicalcivics.com so you can get educated and prepared for 2025. Gene Bailey will be back with you on Monday. Thanks so much for letting me sit in for Gene this week. You've been watching FlashPoint.